So yeah, 500 days in the wild. It was never meant to be literal. I mean, my last film was 40 days at base camp, so it was 40 days on Everest. So I wanted to have a number in this film as well. I'll be honest that when I chose it, it was a pretty random number. But interestingly enough, I knew that the trail was I started the trail in 2015, and I knew the trail was going to open up in 2017. So that was Canada's 150th birthday. And, you know, so anyways, 2017 comes around, and of course I'm like, you know, where am I? I think I'm in Ontario. I'm far, far, far from being near the end of the journey. But what's happening is the trail's officially opening and Canada's having its birthday party. And what I keep reading, and every time I look at the news or anything like that, when I got to the communities, pick up a paper, or even just online news, you know, whenever I had a cell phone thing, it would be like 500 years ago. 500 years ago when the first ships arrived. 500 years ago when they first arrived. 500 years ago. And I went, oh, that's so interesting, because it's 500 years ago. And part of, you know, when I left on this journey, it was a search for lost wisdom, and it was a search for understanding. I felt that we used to live in a society and now we live in an economy. And I felt that somewhere Western culture had lost its connection to the physical world, to the natural world. And that alienation, to me, was what was sort of behind the destruction of the earth, you know. And so this search for lost wisdom, and when you're on the land and you're in the wild and you're searching for lost wisdom, the people that you're going to meet are the people that are still connected to the land, that actually have wisdom about the land. And obviously many of those people were Indigenous people. And so that is where I started finding my hope, because as I entered these communities and sat in circles and learned how to listen, because I wasn't a very good listener, and it's still a weakness, but it's better, because I'm a storyteller. And but in these communities I learned how to listen, and then I started finding my hope. So because it was basically the hope is, it's so simple in some ways, because nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And I think that's what we need right now, are the ideas that people are going to make sense to people. And when it comes to our relationship to the physical environment, traditional Indigenous wisdom is built around that. You know, it's built on sustainability. Think about it. People lived here for 10,000 years, but you don't see their open pit mines. You don't see devastations of forests, because they lived with the principle of only taking what you need. And we're at a place where we're so out of balance with that in our system. So anyway, when I started reading, it was Canada's birthday, and this 500 years ago, and I went, yeah, well, it really makes sense for this film to be called, because 500 days is symbolic of those 500 years. And I'm of settler descent. You know, my mom's ancestry goes back 400 years on this land. My father's 200. And so when I went on this journey, in some ways it was my own journey of reconciliation. They say when we heal ourselves, we heal our ancestors. So I wanted to go out and pay my respects to the ancestors of this land. And I felt, yeah, 500 days in the wild. People keep it, you know, in the first few years especially, people were like, well, are you going to change your name? You know, you can't be calling it 500 days in the wild anymore, you know. And it's like, no, I'm not. It's not literal. And, you know, I usually make people laugh by telling them, yeah, you know, I had a schedule, but it was always a pretty loose schedule. Like when you're by yourself going on a journey this long and you're going to try to make a film about it, how much logistics can you really do? Like all I could ever handle was the next 3 months, you know, maybe the next 3 weeks. And there wasn't any point in focusing on anything more than that, because one of the most important things on this journey has been to adapt. And the more research you do, the more rigid you become, because you're investing time in this plan, and you're a lot less likely to want to let go of that plan because you've invested so much time in this plan that it has to go according to this plan. And when you let go of that plan, yeah, then that's when the journey really begins.